Welcome to the Egg Whisperer Show, a podcast exclusively designed to create more reproductive health awareness and discuss your fertility preservation options. Here is your host, the Harvard-educated fertility specialist, Dr. Amy.
Welcome to the Egg Whisperer Show. The title of today's show is Bringing Compassionate Care to Fertility Patients Through Love and Science. Struggling with fertility challenges can be overwhelming, but what if science and self-compassion could work together to bring you hope? Dr. Erica Bove, a double board-certified fertility specialist, is here to share game-changing insights, success stories, and the emotional support that can make all the difference on your path to parenthood. Whether you're navigating a complex diagnosis or just starting your journey, this episode will empower you with knowledge and encouragement. Fertility journeys are a mix of emotion, self-compassion, and science. And if you're facing challenges, you're going to love learning from my guest, Dr. Erica Bove.
Thank you, Dr. Amy. It's so nice to see you again.
It's so nice to see you too. I'm so excited to have Dr. Erica Bove back on today. A double board certified OBGYN and fertility specialist, she founded Love Science Fertility to combine evidence-based medicine with personalized coaching, empowering women to overcome complex fertility struggles. With a medical degree from the University of Vermont and elite training at New York Presbyterian Hospital, Columbia, and the University of Michigan, she blends expertise with deep compassion. She'll share insights on common challenges, success stories, and the role of emotional support in fertility care. Outside of her practice, she enjoys running, yoga, kayaking, and is training for a half marathon while also serving as a faculty member at the University of Vermont Medical Center. I can't wait for you to hear how love and science can bring hope and clarity to your path to parenthood. Welcome back to the show, Erica.
Thank you so much, Amy.
As a fertility doctor and life coach, what inspired you to launch Love Science Fertility, and how do these two roles complement each other in your practice?
So when I started practicing fertility medicine specifically, I really found that a lot of my patients were having a really hard time making decisions about their care. Like they could sort of reiterate what I was saying, they knew the options, but there was sort of this analysis paralysis of like, well, what's right for me? Or what if this is better? Or is there anything out there we haven't considered? I saw the emotional state of the people I was taking care of, and I was like, we just have to do better. Even though I can say on a silver platter, like, these are your options, this is your diagnosis, this is what I would do if I were you even, I could just tell that the deeper needs of my patients were not being met. And so that's really when I figured out that the coaching I was accessing for my own personal growth, that those tools were what my patients needed to be able to navigate their journeys.
That's great. And fertility treatment, I call it messy. I mean, it can be such a roller coaster ride. And what are some of the most common challenges your patients face, our patients face, and how do you help them navigate these hurdles?
Absolutely. Roller coaster is like the perfect word for it because there's so much data, right? I always say, at the very first visit, we're going to spend a lot of time together. We're going to navigate the highs together. We're going to navigate the lows together. We're in it for the long haul. So let me get to know you. And I know you practice this way too, Dr. Amy. Let me get to know you. Let me understand who you are, how many kids you want. Like, what do you do in your free time? All those things, because all those things play into the ultimate choices that each person or couple makes along the process. So a lot of it is like information overload, right? Even physicians struggle with this because it's like so outside of their wheelhouse. So making that more palatable and understandable, I think is really helpful. I think what I call the hurry up and wait of all of this, right? So it's like rush, rush, rush to get your testing done. And then it's like, oh, okay, now it's going to be a few weeks before I can start XYZ, or okay, we're going to do this when your period comes, but the period doesn't come. Releasing the timeline, I think, is really, really helpful because there's this like hurry up and wait. And it just feels like this sort of out of control aspect of things. Like, I wanted this yesterday, but I can't do XYZ until this date. And how am I going to even spend my time until then?
I love your use of the word together. We're doing this together. And I think so many patients don't have access to someone that makes them feel like they're part of a team and someone's looking out for them.
That's right. And I think it's so important as a patient to really understand that somebody is in your corner, somebody is rooting for you, somebody's going the extra mile to figure this out. It's not just like, oh, well, you went through this algorithm and it didn't work out, so sorry. It's like, wait a second, we're going to leave no stone unturned. We're going to be fully committed to the process. We're going to figure it out together because, and I know you share this belief, like people who want to become parents are going to become parents. It's just what pathway is it going to be? But the journey is so hard. And so how can we give people the tools that they need to be able to weather that journey? I think a good relationship with the REI is like of utmost importance, and to feel seen and heard and that your questions are answered, that's also important. But I think a lot of people maybe don't experience that, or they, feel lost. I hear that word a lot. I just feel so lost. I don't know what my next steps are. I don't really know why I'm doing this treatment plan. I don't really understand why my last cycle didn't work. And people are looking for clarity. And I think a lot of times you can't find that down the Google rabbit hole. You really need a tailored conversation with somebody who understands you and who really wants the best for you. So that's another thing, is just that feeling of disorientation and lostness. I think another thing that is super hard about the process is that there's a lot of triggers along the way. So people are in a grocery store, or they're at church and then a baptism happens, or, there's all these things that happen where I was just innocently walking around the street and my friend texted me that she's pregnant. Like these things are so infuriating and unpredictable and triggering. And so it's like, how do we go through our days with all these different things that remind us that we're on this journey, that are so painful, that rip open the wound? How can we have that emotional steadiness to be able to weather this process? So I love helping people to calm their nervous system so that they can address those sorts of things.
That's where the love comes from, right? And making people know that they're worthy of love and they're so worth it, and feeling loved. I mean, that's, my name, Amy, is loved. I mean, I want people to feel love when they come in here, and every single patient is like VIP to me. Every single patient is special. And you and I see these transformations where, it's almost like you're looking at someone and there's like a piece of them missing. And then by going through a journey that feels supported, it's not that, we can't promise people anything, but we can promise people that we're going to make the journey, as the word enjoyable seems a little far out there, but as enjoyable as possible. So they look forward to seeing us, that they know that we're here for them. And I think that is something that is missing in a lot of these clinics. And with a lot of patients and their experiences where they see a doctor once for 10 minutes and they don't see the doctor again for 2 years. I've heard stories like that, and I'm sure you have too. Building a community is no small feat. What has been the most surprising and heartwarming aspect of creating the Love and Science community?
So even just last night, off the heels of our support group last night, we had a new member and we gave her a good welcome. And I started this with the goal of helping people on the journey, individuals. And I had a vision of a community, but I didn't quite know how it was going to pan out. But over the last 15 months, growing Love and Science, it almost has a life of its own in terms of how the members support each other. And so we have support groups every other Friday night, which are well attended and people look forward to them. And we have a group WhatsApp chat in the meantime where we all rally around people. If they get good news, we celebrate. If they get bad news, we curse and hold space for them and their emotions and validate and all those things. And so, but in the meantime, like if somebody walks by a mural and it's like inspiring, or sees a beautiful flower or has a reflection, it's like this living, breathing organism of a community where people support each other. We've had a couple people recently who had surgery, and, it's just sort of, okay, it's your surgery day. Okay, how are you feeling? Okay, yes, you can take more time off work, and just to see the support of women coming together, not in a competitive way, but in a way that every single person knows that their time is going to come and that we are stronger together. We are absolutely stronger together. And I will say, even last night, like people actually use that word enjoyable, like that their lives were ruined, right? Until they found the support they needed. And then once they got that support, it was just more about like doing the things. And fertility was just sort of one room in the house, not the whole thing. Start going on vacations again, start enjoying their relationships again. And it's a part of life. It's not the whole thing. So I really do think that treatments work better when love is introduced. I think that our bodies need to be able to be receptive to an embryo, to this process. And that really can happen in the best way possible when we're open and trusting. And I really do think, first and foremost, we have to trust our REIs. Again, not that we have to, but I think the best outcomes really happen when we can and we are given permission to be fully who we are. You do that for your patients, Amy, and it's so beautiful to see. And so I really do think it's the combination of the love, right, and the science coming together to help the process feel much better and also to help people achieve their highest possible outcomes.
Yeah, they're less stressed, less overwhelmed, less crying spells, less spiraling, less.
And they believe
is
it can
always
happen.
Yeah.
I always tell the story where I walked into an embryo transfer room and the patient said to me, Dr. Bove, I'm telling you right now, this is not going to work. And I just looked at her and I said, I promise you, my friend, if you're saying it's not going to work, it is not going to work. And so we're going to back up, vision it happening. We're going to engage in some possibility thinking. We're not going to get on that train of it's not going to work, because if we are at that negative, that low vibration, it's not going to work. It just doesn't. And so I think that we need to raise our vibration, right? I love what you say. We need to do something that makes us sparkle every day, right? We need to sort
or
of raise,
vibrate every day.
vibrate. That's the word to use,
Yeah.
vibrate.
Yeah,
We
that
need
too.
to vibrate every day. And that's when our energetic body is aligned with our physical body and things work on a cellular level.
Yeah. So the power of positive mental attitude and really believing in yourself like your REI does, because we're positive people. I mean, we don't go into fertility medicine because we're negative Nellies. We are in a way cheerleaders rooting for our patients every step of the way.
That's right. And I want to say one more thing about that, though. I want to clarify, though, it's not about toxic positivity. It's not about false hope. It's about saying, I believe in you because there are reasons, scientific reasons for authentic hope, right? This is what's in your particular favor of why I believe in you, right? And this is why I think we stay on the path. And so I think when people can understand that the hope is grounded in science, that the love is authentic, that's where I think people can feel the most supported and held and really believe in themselves too.
Yeah, being hopeful, positive, and practical. That's how I think about hope. And then for my patients, when I start off, let's say with a new patient consult, they're already so beaten down. I say, let's talk about the positive things. You're in a loving relationship. You're still making mature eggs. You're still making blastocysts. Like, these are all the reasons why we're still here pursuing this goal together, rather than some of the messaging, the negative messaging they get about their egg quality or their age, which I don't find helpful at all. Our patients aren't dumb. They know the reality. They know what they're working with. But if we can focus on the things that make us feel like it's worthwhile to continue, then they're going to feel the same energy that we feel helping them.
100%.
Yeah. So when patients choose to work with you, what does that experience look like?
So I have a 12-week program and it's called Love and Science Starting to Thrive. And what that is basically, I thought about what are the most sort of common things, the stumbling blocks that people have a hard time with on a fertility journey. So whether it's negative thought patterns or dealing with bad news or boundaries, even, some women really struggle with saying to their jobs, like, I need this time off, even if they're not specific about why. Like, it's like, I can't do IVF because I can't take. Yes, you deserve that time. If it were an appendicitis, you take that time. So let's help you find a language to take that time off. And so I have 12 videos. One is meant to be done every week, but people can do it at their own pace. And I have worksheets and homework because most of my clients are huge nerds like me and you. It really helps to tailor the process to them. So there's the content that people work through. And then there's 6 one-on-one coaching sessions over 12 weeks. We try to cluster those around the important dates. But I really think it's important that people understand the whole philosophy of it. It's about possibility thinking. It's about believing in ourselves. It's about connecting with that authentic hope. And all of those themes are sort of woven within both the content and the individual coaching. So it really starts with understanding who we are individually, like what are our values, what is our identity, because we have to understand ourselves first before any of this other stuff is going to make sense. It's not like a cookie cutter and it's the same for every single person. There are no two fertility journeys that are exactly the same. So I think just really starting with, okay, who am I? Why am I on this path? What have been my greatest challenges and what are my thoughts about how I can start to overcome those things, right? And then we get into feeling the feelings. That's the next part of this, because so many of us are not taught how to feel our feelings. But the fertility journey is full of feelings in all the directions, right? Like I always say, sometimes good news is even very problematic because it's like, what do you do with the good news? And so we work on feeling the whole range of emotions and really embodying those emotions and letting them go. Because until we can really feel the full range of human emotions, we're going to get stuck places. We're not going to be able to have hard conversations. We're going to avoid, we're going to distract, we're going to resist, all those things. So really accepting that human experience is really the next step. And then we start to really understand, okay, what are the limiting beliefs that are keeping us from moving forward? Whether it's like making a big decision about maybe your own eggs versus donor eggs. Maybe it's trying to understand how many more IUI cycles to do before doing IVF. Maybe it's about whether to take a break in fertility care or really keep on plugging through. Maybe it's about something unrelated to fertility, like a job change. But I think it's really about understanding our own worthiness our worthiness to become parents. And if we have messaging within us, our machinery, if we are our own inner critic that is so harsh, if we are full of blame and self-doubt and negativity, how can we start to shine a light on those things through coaching tools to then say, would everybody agree that this is true? Is that not true? Is this how I want to feel? And then we can start gently undoing some of those things that we thought were fixed, those limiting beliefs that hold us back, and start to think about shifting our thoughts and then consequently our feelings to higher vibration actions. And then ultimately the results that come from overcoming those limiting beliefs and making empowered choices with our journeys.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And can anyone work with you?
Anyone, yes. So I
it.
will say the people who tend to find me the most are female physicians. For some reason, there's something about being a physician patient that I understand very deeply, and I think people resonate with that message. The support groups right now are truly just for the female physicians because that group has kind of taken off, but I do have a waiting list. And once I have enough interest, I will start a separate group. My goal is to have multiple groups as well. So yes, anybody can work with me. I will say, people who work with me need to be motivated because doing this work is really deep work and it really takes a lot of intention. It takes a commitment and it takes a willingness to be uncomfortable because growth really only happens out of our comfort zone. So again, it's not like intentional torture, but it's to say, okay, when we start shining a light on these things, I always joke, when I started this and sometimes even today, like I'd rather clean a toilet than feel my feelings, right? Now I see the value in it. I know I'm like a more grounded human. Other things flow in my life better if I take time to do that. But sometimes it's like, what's going to come up when I actually start to think about these things, when I stop busying myself, when I give myself some space. Most of my clients are female professionals, very motivated and have succeeded in every other aspect of life. And it's like, wait a sec, I can't just work harder and make this happen. Like that's been the equation that's worked for me my entire life. Like, what the heck? And I think that can be a very difficult thing to realize. And it's like, okay, well then understanding that sometimes less is more. How can I be gentle with myself? How can I offer myself that self-compassion and receive compassion from somebody like you, Amy, or me, to be able to cross that bridge into parenthood intact and not just completely destroyed on the other side?
Yeah. I mean, I would actually choose cleaning a toilet than talking about my emotions. Like if someone were to say like, what's wrong? How are you doing? I'd be like, let me go clean that toilet.
Isn't that interesting?
You're right. It's not easy. Like I'd rather just bottle it up inside and just fester and let it go away on its own over time. If it does, than actually, face it.
I know you've experienced this too. Like what happens when you do go into that space? What happens when you decide to slow down, when you decide to feel the feelings, when you take that time? What are the benefits that you appreciate on the other side?
Peace, harmony, just mental peace. So your brain feels less, it's like the thoughts aren't screaming at you all the time. You know what I mean? So you just stop ruminating and perseverating over something that's bothering you. And then you feel inner peace. Yeah. So there's no doubt about that. But like, we're all so busy, we're running around like it's hard to find the time to do that. So I think it's important for people to do that. And I'll take your advice. I will stop cleaning the toilet.
And I think so. I mean, sometimes structure can be very freeing. So like one thing I've learned for myself is like coffee is non-negotiable for me. I adore coffee, but it takes time to brew coffee, right? So I start my coffee, I put on my meditation. It takes me 10 minutes to start my meditation. And then my coffee is ready and I savor it. But like, the thing is, it's not like I'm sitting on a mountain for 2 hours a day, but by taking that 10 minutes in the morning, it really is part of my routine. I don't even think anything of it. It's just 10 minutes. But I breathe better in stressful circumstances. It sets my day up to say like, okay, I've plugged in spiritually. I've grounded myself. I can handle whatever comes. And even more recently, I have this friend who's a sleep physician, and she talks about having like a wind down routine at the end of the day too, which gosh, if we have a morning routine, why wouldn't we have a bedtime routine almost? I've sort of taken that to heart too, of doing a check-in and saying, okay, like what was great about today? What maybe didn't go so well? What's my outlook for tomorrow? And I think even just asking myself that question, the subconscious gets to work and then the next day goes even better. So I think just noticing that it's not like hours of our lives, but just building these things into our routines can really have a really big return on investment.
Yeah, I agree. Structure is really important for me too, to be efficient, to make sure that I'm present for all my patients, prepping things for patients the next day, and asking myself the question, what can I do to make the patient experience that I'm seeing tomorrow even better what can I do internally with how I present data to her? And I know you've shared some inspiring examples already, but I'd love to hear some more inspiring examples, anonymously, of course, of patients who've thrived through your coaching and care.
So one of my favorite stories is one of my very first clients. She is from California, and she found me and she said, hey, I, have had a couple of miscarriages, and I decided to do IVF thinking that was the problem, right? Both of her losses were chromosomally abnormal losses. She generated a bunch of euploid embryos, as many people do. I mean, obviously some people struggle more than others, but in her one cycle, she got a bunch, and she thought, okay, problem solved. I'm just going to start doing my transfers and it's going to work out for me. And she had, unfortunately, a non-pregnancy cycle. So her first transfer did not work. And then she had another transfer that was a very early loss. And that's when it really started to hit her. Like, I thought IVF was the answer for me. And I am now finding it's not only about generating euploid embryos. It's a lot. Maybe it's more, deep than this. And so by the time she found me, like you said, I mean, she was already just very, in a state of despair. She was shut down. She was very worried that she was never going to become a parent. I think a lot of our patients are very worried that parenthood is not going to happen for them. And it's a very deep, hard thing to bear when all you've ever wanted in life is to be a mom, right? And you're told it might not be possible. So she found me and she said, listen, Erica, like, I think I'm blocking my own success at this point. Like, I know I have euploid embryos and a number of them, but I can't see any of them working. It's not possible that these are going to work. And I want to change that thinking, but I don't know how. And so we worked together, and about 8 weeks into the 12-week program, I'll never forget the session where I saw her body change, just like you saw, like you start to see these transformations, like over the Zoom screen. I just saw her relax, and she said, I think this next transfer is going to work. And I said, I think so too. And she started to believe in herself. She started to believe that the science was possible. We did all these visualizations, not just of the transfer day, but also how she wanted the day to go when she found out that she was pregnant, right? Or not pregnant, right? She's like, I can handle any outcome, but I'm going to see it happening. I'm going to see it happening. I get the news of my husband and my pets, and it's going to be good news. I can see it happening. And lo and behold, the embryo transfer took. She navigated some first trimester bleeding, which was, of course, it's always very alarming and scary when that happens. But she delivered her beautiful son in November. And it gives me chills to think of her story because, I saw the deep work that she did to believe it was possible. She raised her vibration. And then when that little embryo was transferred into her, like, it was able to connect. And so again, like, if she hadn't found me and she had stayed in that negative space, who knows what would have happened? We can't do that study. But for her, it doesn't matter because she's now a parent, enjoying life as a mother. And she said she's going to come back and do it again, when she's ready for another kid. So I think it's that possibility thinking that is so profound. I have another client who had similar story, like 2 losses on her own. They were aneuploid, and then she had a euploid transfer. But unfortunately, she had a loss of the euploid embryo as well. So again, I think we maybe hang our hat a little bit too much on PGTA technology, that it's like the cure all for everything. But she said, I just don't know if I can handle another miscarriage. Like, this journey has been so hard. And so she ended up like working with me, and we sort of thought outside the box in terms of her treatment plan, which again, just to kind of compliment you in the way that you take care of patients. I love your possibility thinking. I love how you think outside the box. I love how you're on the forefront of care. It was sort of on that same vein, just really kind of thinking about her uniquely and saying, okay, what do you need to get you across the finish line? And so we did some outside the box things. She had her next transfer. It took. She stayed pregnant. Actually, that embryo split into she's pregnant now with identical twins well into her second trimester. And, she just always tells me, like, just working with you, it's done more than you'll ever realize. And again, like, you never know what would have happened in a different situation, but you could just see the anxiety melt. You could see her belief in herself. You could see that when she found out with twins, she's like, she was pregnant with twins, like, okay, like, I know I'm a busy surgeon, but I'm going to need to make some changes here because this is the most important priority in my life. And I need to prioritize myself in this pregnancy right now. And I think so many of us, high achiever women have really sacrificed a lot to our own detriment, right? So helping people find their own voice and stand up for themselves and what they need to bring about the best outcomes is something I know we're both passionate about. Those are a couple of examples. And it's just like seeing how people can not only have successful outcomes in their fertility journeys, but then also hearing we do the win of the week. And whenever we start the support group, we always start with like, what's working? People, stand up to their mother-in-laws and say, no, you can't fill my fridge with all this like food that we don't ever eat or want. Like, I need my fridge. Like, people, they'll get a massage when otherwise they would have picked up another shift. People can give me concrete examples of how they've been able to really integrate self-compassion into their day-to-day and how that makes them feel so much better. And actually, the data shows we actually achieve more when we're self-compassionate, not less. We don't do it for that reason. But again, it feels good and our brains work better and it just makes everything else flow. So those are the sorts of things that I love to hear about these wins, because it's that groundedness, it's that steadiness, it's that resilience that helps people tolerate the process and maybe even enjoy it, like you said, and, really bridge to parenthood.
Yeah. Well, you certainly have a gift, Erica. I'm so glad you're using these superpowers to help so many people. And just talking to me on this podcast for people who aren't able to join your community, I think they're just going to learn so much about the things that you've shared with us today. So for folks who are able to work with you, how can they find you? Can you remind us again?
Yes, my website is the most comprehensive place. So it's loveandsciencefertility.com. There's a link to book a call with me, and I always provide lots of value in that consult call. We talk through your situation, your goals, what you need emotionally to get through the process, and then we sort of see if working together would be a good fit. Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes it's maybe I can direct you to other resources as well. But I also have a podcast, which is under the same name, Love and Science Fertility. I try to make some based on love and emotions. And people have asked me for more science. So I'm really trying to inject some more science into the mix too. Because again, that's like, I think you and I could both do that in our sleep, Amy. But I think people really do want that clarity. They want to understand the nuances. And I think it's really our duty to provide that to people. So there's more science episodes as well.
Yeah. Well, we'll be sure to link your podcast in the show notes so people can also subscribe and start listening if they aren't already. Is there anything else you'd like to add today?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, I'm just going to shout from the rooftops that you, Dr. Amy, are the best. And I adore you. And I love your unique style of how you practice medicine, because I think that's amazing. And I think, I would say just don't be afraid to be yourself. Don't be afraid to speak up. When you have that gut intuition of what you think you need, like so much of the time we squelch that and we're like, oh no, that's not important. Or, oh no, I'm bothering someone or putting them off. Like the worst thing that somebody can do is say no. And if you think that there's something more, if you think that you want a second opinion, if you think that that this desire was planted in your heart for a reason and you're not getting what you need, or you don't feel like you're making progress, like it's okay to think outside the box. Like a lot of this is actually unconventional. And a lot of this is still in its very early stages of what we can understand and what we don't. Check out Dr. Amy, check out myself. Just know that there are people who care about you and who are rooting for you. We're in your corner. And I really do believe, I'll reiterate this, the best outcomes happen when there's the love and the science combined, and you can feel supported and just relax and be a patient and let it happen. So we are both rooting for you always.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope you'll come on again soon and we'll talk more about all the wonderful things that you're doing.
100%. Thanks so much for having me again.
Thank you so much for listening and making the Egg Whisperer Show a part of your weekly routine. To find show notes and a full transcript for this episode, visit dramy.org and look under the blog tab. While you're there, you can find a link for the Egg Whisperer newsletter, which keeps you in the know about fertility news. You can also find Dr. Amy and the Egg Whisperer Show on YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook. If you'd like to learn even more, Dr. Amy offers classes at the Egg Whisperer School, eggwhispererschool.com, or you can request a consultation on dramy.org. Thank you so much for tuning in and for sharing the Egg Whisperer Show with others. Keep sparkling and have a great day.